Every person has a story, but not everyone has a place to tell it. I've interviewed amazing people all over the planet. I want you to meet them.
I'm Rob McCann. I'm not the most interesting person you've never heard of because everyone's heard of me, and most days I wish they had it.
Well, Rob McCann, welcome to the most interesting person you've never heard of podcast. It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to do this for a while.
Well, my problem is everyone has heard of me.
That's in this town.
In this town.
But you are the busiest man in show business, I think. Like, you're always busy.
It's an interesting job, but this is my 24th year, and I'm still here.
Does it ever stop?
You know,
you ever get a break?
It used to be a little less in the summer, but that's not true anymore. And it's just, you know, like the issues that we're tackling, and they're never ending, and they're growing.
Right.
And they're very complex.
Right. So you did not grow up here like me. You
No,
came from the other side of the world.
New York City, born and raised.
New York City. So where in the city?
Right outside the George Washington Bridge, technically New Jersey. I don't say I'm from New Jersey.
Yeah, no, but you wouldn't want to do
People
that.
kind of go, oh, God, New Jersey.
Well, then you say, what exit?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's Garden State Parkway. We're about 10 minutes outside of Manhattan.
Wow. So what was life growing up there?
I loved it. I mean, I'm a Yankee fan. I'm a New York Ranger fan. I grew up playing hockey, played in high school and college, and just love that part of the country, but not enough to ever want to live there.
Oh, wow.
When you've been out here, you realize there's no reason for any person to want to live in a big East Coast city. When you've got a place like Spokane that's so beautiful and amazing.
Yeah, I spent this last weekend at Glacier for the first time.
It's
I don't know
beautiful.
if you've ever been up
Yeah.
there, but oh my, I can't believe it's taken me this long to actually go hang out there
great.
for a few days. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This
whole area is awesome.
It is, and it's 4 hours away. It wasn't very far at all, and I'm so struck by how every time I go there, and I filmed in Alaska, how pristine the water, how clear the water is, how much you can see, how abundant the wildlife is, and it's like, well, it's because we didn't screw that up. Like Teddy Roosevelt was smart enough to keep that conserved. Not at least not now. Well, that's great. So what brought you here? How did you get to Spokane? Did they do a massive search and they're like, there's
I was
Rob
working
McCann.
overseas with Catholic Relief Services. I was in 20 some odd countries in 5 years and lived out of a hockey bag and just jumped from country to country, did evaluations, wrote a report back to Baltimore, and then went to the next country.
What were you evaluating?
Just programs, all kinds of Catholic Relief Services programs in different countries.
What is Catholic Relief? What do they do?
It's like Catholic Charities, but the overseas version. They're in 80 countries. They do humanitarian aid, disaster relief, refugee camps, health programs in about 80 different countries.
I guess I have heard of that. I just never really knew much of what happens over there.
It was a great job. I loved it. And I got sent here to do a 3-month temporary duty assignment. And a Jesuit friend of mine back at Fairfield, where I went to college in Connecticut, said, "Oh, you got to go to Spokane. It's the best public golf courses of anywhere in America."
That's true.
And I love golf.
You do?
I love golf.
What are we doing? When are we
played
playing?
Yesterday.
What?
Oh, yeah.
All right, we're going to go play now.
Yeah,
Because look at that bag right there.
Well, there you
Check
go.
that out. That's my grandfather's.
And so I
golf
said, well,
bag.
Spokane, this is before the days of the internet. This was like 1990, late 90s, and there was no Google yet. And I said, oh, Spokane, that's probably close to Seattle. I'm young. Like,
of course
that'll
it
be
is.
fun.
Everything
It's 4
is.
hours away. Whoops. But while I was here, I met my now wife, and she's got 8 brothers and sisters in the area. And
Wow, really?
wanted to stay here, and I didn't ever plan to stay in Spokane my whole life. I thought I'd be overseas, and I'd retire at Catholic Relief Services.
Did she grow up here?
Yeah, Walla Walla.
Oh, Walla Walla. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's,
I'm one of 8. She's one of 9.
She's one of 8. Yeah.
She's one of 8. I'm one of 8.
Yeah.
So she and I need to have a cocktail.
Oh, yeah. And, I've been here ever
Commiserate
since.
over that.
24 years in running now.
Wow. Yeah. So favorite place you went overseas?
Oh, I mean, I was all over Africa and Asia and Central America, India. I think Madagascar, for me, was really cool.
Wow. What age were you in this journey?
I was young, 22, 23,
That's
24-year-old
the time to do
Rob. I didn't have a mortgage or I didn't own anything. I wasn't married. Everything I owned fit in a hockey bag, and it was a perfect job. You get to see the world.
Well, my daughter is 23. She just graduated from UW, or is about to, and she's going to Europe, going to Italy
Nice.
for a month study abroad, and so I think I get to go over and see her.
You should go.
I'm totally gonna go.
I tell young people all the time, the most important thing you could do is travel, see the world,
Absolutely.
get out of your comfort zone.
What'd you learn in that? I
learned more being overseas than I ever did in any degree, and I've got a master's and a PhD. I still learn more being overseas. Just about cultures and people and realities and survival and logistics. You learn to figure crap out, and to
appreciate what we have here.
Absolutely.
I mean, as bad as it can be.
So one thing I saw in every country I was in, without exception, is everyone wanted to come to America.
Yeah, right. That was my experience in China and Europe, all the places I've been. Same thing. Yeah. They adored the people, us. For the most part, I never had any trouble.
Yeah.
With those experiences. Yeah, you must. Yeah, you do kind of learn a lot. I'm glad you had that. Probably it's helped you in your experience now more than you even realize.
I think about it all the time. How great it was. I got to meet Mother Teresa, spend a bunch of time with her in
Tell
Calcutta.
me that story. What?
Oh yeah.
When did you? What?
It's one of my favorite parts of that whole experience was being there.
So how did you meet her?
We went to do evaluations in India, and we would evaluate whoever CRS gives a lot of money to, or commodities, food, to in that country. And in India, it's Missionaries of Charity, Mother Teresa. And so we were in Calcutta, and the rule she's got is if you've got a meeting with her that day, you have to show up for 5 a.m. Mass at the Mother House. And if you don't show up for Mass, your meeting's canceled.
That's just so great.
Doesn't matter who you are. Doesn't matter
rule.
if you're Catholic or not. And so I would go to the Mother House for Mass, and 5 a.m. the sisters would be in the Mother House in the chapel, and right at 5 exactly on the dot, Mother Teresa would come in and sit in the chair in the back. All the other nuns are on the floor, and she would take her rosary and she'd bang her Bible, and Mass would start. And just an amazing woman. I got to talk with her and spend time with her and see her programs and ask her questions and. Just an amazing person, obviously, but the ability to kind of have known her even a tiny bit.
Oh my God,
was incredible.
Anything about it that was unique? I mean, did you get an energy or a presence?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's just you feel like you're with just a very special human being, like just the aura. Very quiet and very soft spoken, but very clear, very intelligent. Asks all the right questions, has all the perfect answers.
At peace.
At peace, but yet just dedicated, totally aggressive servant of the poor.
Sounds like Rob McCann.
Well, I'm not even in the same league as her. But, I think
I don't know.
It's pretty amazing what she's done, what she did with her life. And, her Missionaries of Charities are all over the world. They're in Spokane. Wow. They're in, 100 different countries. Really? Yeah.
Wow.
And it's just, that was special. See, every country I was in, there's not a single country that I would say, I hated that. And that even if there was a refugee camp or a genocide going on or a famine or whatever, despite all the tough stuff, it was always just beautiful to get to see different cultures and meet different people and feel like you're doing some small thing to help, which Catholic Relief Services, they're the best at that. Overseas, they are the best.
Wow.
I like to think Catholic Charities in the U.S. is the best at this stuff. They are the best overseas. They're right up there with UNICEF,
wow.
And Save the Children. I mean, they're in all these countries and
wow.
they do all this great work. And
so when you went up there, did you have to be like, okay, listen, sister, you're failing here, and did you give her a report card?
Well,
Rob?
what's funny is
what do you say to Mother Teresa?
I was part of the internal.
Was she slacking ever?
I was part of the internal audit team. So a lot of countries we'd go and we'd look at their books and show me your inventories and make sure that all the money's getting spent the right way, because the federal government wants you to account for everything.
Of course.
Except in one country, in India, because Mother Teresa doesn't keep books, never did. And if you said, well, where are your records? Well, that just takes time away from serving the poor. We're not going to waste time doing that.
Interesting.
And no one ever wrote her up for a finding. Who's going to do that?
That's what I mean.
So you would just go there and be like, well, yeah, we can't do any of the things we normally do when we audit a country or evaluate a country.
She got a pass.
And you would just be like, you would just go see how things are going and say thank you very much. And who's going to write up Mother Teresa?
Well,
Nobody.
maybe she was the biggest smuggler of all. You never know, Rob.
It's the perfect cover.
It's the greatest
she could have gotten away with it, because you're talking about tens of millions of dollars of cargo ships filled with grain and milk and oil and supplies, and they're going to lots of organizations, and they all have to keep meticulous records. Mother Teresa didn't keep any records.
So amazing.
And because it took time away from serving the poor.
Right. How bad were the conditions in Calcutta where she was?
In India, the poverty is profound. And it's because there's such a high density of people.
Oh, God.
And I think of any city I was in any of the countries, Calcutta maybe was the most difficult just to be in. It was kind of sensory overload. There's so much poverty, there's so much suffering, and there's just so many people everywhere. The noise, the smells, the heat.
It never shuts off.
It just never shuts off.
Overwhelming.
And it was difficult. And, I can remember walking around and I'm just drop sweating. It's 120 degrees or whatever it was. And here's the sisters and Mother Teresa in a full sari and not a bead of sweat on their body.
Interesting.
And it's like, man, teach me how to do that. Because my shirt is soaked. I have all these great pictures of me and Mother Teresa, and it's like, my God, Rob, the pit stains. Like, what's going on?
She forgave you, son.
Well, and
my son.
You'd roll up with the CRS vehicles, the brand new white Toyota Land Cruisers, air conditioned, beautiful. She would walk right past every one of those cars and go find the most broken down local Calcutta taxi cab and jump in that car. Because if the poor don't have air conditioning, I don't need it either.
Wow.
And now you're in a tiny car with no air conditioning and it breaks down, and the CRS vehicles all following her to the next spot.
Oh my God. Well, we had Geshe-la, who is a monk, a Buddhist monk who's here in Spokane. He's got a little ashram up by Gonzaga Prep up there in Hilliard. Amazing guy. Like, you should meet him. He's incredible. And he was on here and he talked about meeting the Dalai Lama several times and getting his instructions actually to come to Spokane from him.
Wow.
And so it sounds like a similar... Just the way you describe her is similar to how he described
just
the Dalai Lama.
Just a very holy presence.
Yep.
You knew you were in the presence of a saint.
Yeah.
You just knew it. Whether you're Catholic or not, whether you believe in saints or not, doesn't matter. You knew you were in the presence of a saint.
Wow, incredible. So you come here after that.
Yeah, and started working at Catholic Charities. First job I had, my first week, was build the House of Charity.
Really?
It was a dirt spot on the corner there, and the construction Garco had just started digging the foundation.
And you're just like labor guy.
No, I mean, I was overseeing. I was the associate director of Catholic Charities.
You were the associate director. At what age?
I don't know. I was probably 20-something, 28, 29.
28. So you land here, and that plan is already going, and you're helping to build it.
Donna Hanson had already decided they're going to not build one new shelter. They're going to build two at once, House of Charity and St. Margaret's. And hey, welcome, Rob. You're in charge of all of this now. Good luck. I've never been on a construction site in my life.
Oh, my God.
I don't know anything about construction.
Oh, my God.
But Tim Welsh, who owns Garco,
he
was so great. He walked me
guy.
through there once a week and explained to me everything that was going on. And we built the House of Charity right where it still stands today.
So what year was that?
2000.
2000 House of Charity was built there.
Yeah, right in that
What had
spot.
been there before?
Empty lot. In fact, the city of Spokane told us to put the House of Charity there because that neighborhood was blighted back then. There was nothing there. It wasn't the university district, and it was a contaminated lot. The city thought, well, there's no way Catholic Charities will pay. The railroad had contaminated it. It was going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to clean it up. And Don Hanson said, well, of course we'll pay that. That's a perfect spot. And the city said, well, that's where we want it. So that's where we built it. Now, 25 years later, people are like, why did you put it there? You've ruined Spokane.
Yeah. Welcome to Spokane.
We were told to put it there.
Right.
And at the time, that real estate was dying. That whole area was dying.
Yeah.
And now it's very up and coming, which is great. It's a university district. That's great.
People forget that.
People forget that. We did the ground blessing. Bishop Skill says out there blessing the dirt. And in the middle of his prayer, 5 homeless guys who were in the tall grass behind him pop up. They were asleep. So, I mean, there's been homeless people on that corner in that area for 50 years in Spokane. But now, of course, it's, well, gosh, Catholic Charities has ruined that whole entrance of Spokane.
Wow.
There's always been that problem in that area. At the time when we built House of Charity, we were the nicest building around, and we've built more buildings down there now. They are still the nicest buildings in that area.
Right, yeah.
But it also means a lot of people get attracted to that area. Why? Because House of Charities there, because our housing havens are there. And, you know, for the people who drive by, what do they see? They see these groups of 20 or 30 kind of scary looking people hanging out in front of our buildings. And they drive by and they go, wow, that looks really scary. Like, that doesn't look good. What's going on? Well, those are all people that have said no to us helping them.
Yeah.
They have said no to services. They don't want to come in the House of Charity. They don't want to talk about getting treatment or getting housing or getting help. But they hang out there because for a lot of them, they're engaged in criminal activity. They're preying on the other vulnerable people that are coming to the House of Charity. And, you know, the police can't do anything about it. We have a great police force in this town. They're totally under-resourced. The jail is full. They can't arrest anybody. And so these big groups of people hang out in front of our buildings because they are themselves maybe homeless, but they're also engaging in activities that are hurtful to themselves or others, sometimes criminal. And they create a very scary optic for 25,000 cars a day that go down 2nd Avenue. And all they see is big, beautiful building, scary people in front. Now, if you go in the House of Charity, you go in any of those buildings, you're going to see pristine, clean, well-maintained, safe, quiet, awesome buildings. No one ever goes in. They just drive by.
That's right.
And see the guy on the sidewalk smoking fentanyl.
That's right.
And they just say, well, God, Catholic Charities, they must have no rules. Like, what are they allowing to happen over there?
That's exactly right.
Because that person's trying to sneak into the building and can't get in.
That's right.
Because they're ultimately secured facilities.
Right. Yeah. Dina Carr was on here.
Yeah.
And one of the things she talked about, she runs a House of Charity, and one of the things she talked about was there's also security cameras there.
Yeah. We have about 120 cameras in that 2-block area.
And those people who are homeless who choose not to get services know that those cameras are there.
Yep.
And in some ways, they kind of use them because it is safe.
Yeah.
At least they know, hey, there's some kind of safety there.
Yeah. Well, and it's not uncommon in any city in America where the biggest shelter in town is going to attract not just the people you're serving, but people who are with that crowd who get to the front door House of Charity and there's 5 guys. 3 of them go, yeah, I'm going in. I'm going to get help. 2 of them say, screw that. I'm staying outside. And we beg them to come in. Let us help you. They say no. And they hang out outside and they engage in unhelpful activities.
Yep.
And that's what drivers by see.
And
that's
people
what the
drive by.
pictures are.
So the image is, oh, look at all those
The
houses.
image is, what a mess.
Look what Catholic Charities
What a
did.
disaster. Look what Catholic Charities did. They've ruined the gateway to Spokane. It's where the city told us to put it. And we regularly contact the police and say, the following list of individuals are drug dealers or human traffickers or are involved in breaking into cars. We have them on video. Here are their names. Here are their license plates of their vehicles. Could you please arrest them? Because they're preying on our vulnerable clients. And the police try everything they can do. They don't have enough police officers. We don't have enough resources. And honestly, we have a jail that's built for 800. I think there's 1,100 in there right now. So people don't get arrested. They get a paper ticket, a paper arrest. Cop writes them a ticket saying you can't smoke that fentanyl on the street. You're under arrest. Here's a piece of paper. And they take it and crumple it up and throw it. And it creates a situation that if you're staff or residents of those buildings, it's super scary. And if you're driving by, you wonder what the hell is going on there.
Right.
And who's to blame for that? Well, it's Catholic Charities logos on every building. Catholic Charities is to blame.
Right.
The reality is that there's some element of this population who won't take help, who won't let us help them, who want to hang out downtown in Spokane and engage in activities that are harmful to themselves or others. They need to be engaged by law enforcement. We've been saying that for decades, but yet, I'm known as the guy who lets anyone get away with anything. There's no laws. I'm crazy progressive liberal, and I think everyone should be allowed to do anything. I don't think any of those things.
Yeah.
I think those people need to be engaged by law enforcement.
How does that get sort of labeled? People just make that up and start saying it?
It's the narrative that exists in the world of social media and political elected officials who are running for office. They stump on that.
It's an easy target.
It's an easy target.
Yeah.
The best way, the most effective way to get elected, as we're seeing in this country right now, make people angry and afraid.
Yeah. Oh, fear.
That's
fear.
Great. That is a great way to get votes.
Yeah.
It works almost every time.
Yep.
If you can make enough voters angry about something or afraid of something that might hurt them, then they will instantly vote to whoever's going to claim to fix that.
Right.
And it's basically a parlor trick.
The governing part of it after they get elected is a totally different conversation. Yeah, it doesn't change. Yeah. It's the same problem there.
But at the end of the day, why are there so many homeless? Why is homelessness growing? The reality is homelessness is a housing problem. problem. There is not enough housing in our country or in Spokane. If you have no addiction, no mental health, you're working a 40-hour week job, minimum wage, you can't live in Spokane. You can't afford it.
No, it's not.
And even if you could afford it, you wouldn't find a spot. So someone who's addicted or has mental health issues or down on their luck, they have no chance.
Right.
And so they have to go somewhere. Where are they going to go? You know, everyone says, well, I don't want them out in downtown Spokane. They're going to ruin my vibe when I go from P.F. Chang's to the movie theater. I don't want to have to see that. It makes me uncomfortable.
Right.
So we don't want them there. Well, okay, well, we don't want them hanging around the House of Charity. We don't want them at Camp Hope. Where do you want them? The reason that these people are having struggles is because our healthcare system is broken. There is no access to mental health care or addiction recovery care, and these people need those medical services. And if they could get them, they would have a much better chance.
Yeah, you know, I've had honestly the pleasure the last couple of years doing work with you, and just full disclosure, you know, Catholic Charities is a client of ours, and we get to tell some of the coolest things we ever work on are stories about you and what the work you guys are really doing, and getting to go inside these places where people don't get to go, right? That drive by and don't go, oh, it must be chaos in there. It's not. I mean,
I've been in these
buildings. I've filmed these buildings. It's not like that at all. And as you go up the ladder of, you know, the experience of House of Charity being inside there, it's a clean place. It's, you know, obviously it's a challenging environment, but it's not. I mean, I always find it, you know, really well done, and the people working there are amazing. And as you go into the Havens, much calmer situation, right? You have people there that have they're in a better situation. It's really just a place to live. It's an apartment complex. It's an apartment complex, and it's a nice one, and it's new, and there's food, and there's a lot going on, and there's people that are making, you know, connections for life in there, and really a lot of services available to them that people don't know about. I mean, that's something we'll talk about. And then recently this last month or so, a couple times getting a film at Catalyst, which is a very interesting conversation I think we'll have about that. But that complex, it used to be, you know, the old Spokane House Hotel. Quality Inn before, you know, most recently before that, it was a historic hotel. That's the place we had brunch, you know, when you were a kid. JFK was up there when he was running for office, you know, running for president. He stayed there. Yeah. I mean, it was the posh place. And you guys turned that around on a dime. And most recently being there, that place of all of them feels the best to me.
It's the most successful model. It's going to be the future of all of our services.
I just, you know, you go some places, and I'm talking about elderly care. My mom went through that, lived in a nursing home, what we would call a nursing home back in the day. And it was tough. You know, there were times when didn't smell great, didn't look great. It was sort of sad. She wanted out of there. It wasn't a bad situation at all, but that reality was tough to feel. You could feel it. Yeah. I can certainly feel it at House of Charity, but as you go up, I didn't feel any of that at Catalyst at all. And my crew talked about it. They're like, whoa, who lives here? You know, it doesn't feel, it feels different. Like a college dorm. Yeah. It feels like, I don't know. I just never
much cleaner
that we filmed in that. Yes, it is much cleaner. We filmed and these are all people that most of these people were at Camp Hope just a couple of years ago.
It's the same crowd that is at the House of Charity. What we've learned now, when we built the House of Charity, when I first got here and I built the House of Charity, at that point, big congregate shelter with 150 guys sleeping in the same giant dorm.
So just to be clear, House of Charity is men only.
Men only, correct.
St. Margaret's is women only?
Women and kids.
Women and kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
But when we built that congregate shelter, 150 guys in one big dorm, that was the best practice. That was the
So you're literally sleeping next to somebody in a bunk.
You're within a couple inches of the next bed. And that was the best way to do it. Now, since then, we've learned more about trauma-informed care. Since then, mental health and addiction has become much more acute. And all the studies are showing people who are suffering from these behavioral health illnesses, they need their own space. putting you in a room with 150 other guys who are snoring and coughing and screaming in their sleep.
I would hate that.
Not only is it not good for things like COVID, it's not good for your mental health.
Yeah.
And when you put them in Catalyst and they have their own room, it's tiny, but their own tiny room and a door and their own key, they feel more dignified, more empowered. That we have much better outcomes at Catalyst than we've ever had at House of Charity in terms of getting people healthy and stable and clean and sober and employed. It's 10x better at Catalyst.
Has to be.
And so what we know now, congregate shelter is not the best practice. And so we are going to move away from that. And we're going to move into more places that look like Catalyst. And we're not going to build any more shelters that have a giant dorm with 100 guys sleeping in it. That's just not the best practice. It's not trauma informed. It's not the best way to do it from a health perspective or a safety perspective. And it doesn't help homeless people. And here's the moment where I realized we need to change. Just a couple of years ago, I walked through Camp Hope almost every week, and I walked through there, and I think it was negative something that day. And we had beds at the House of Charity, and there was beds at Trent Shelter. And I said, would you please, I will take you in my car. Please come to the House of Charity.
You're talking to people in their tents.
In their tents. And they said to me, I would rather stay outside in -5-degree temperature than go into a congregate shelter. And at that moment, we knew we better start doing it differently.
Was that really why? Because that was my experience of, creating Housing and Help and that whole series. We spent a couple of days there. And that was the question that we asked people that live there. Why are you here? Mm-hmm. And the number one, the only reason was I can shut my door. I'm like, it's a tent and it's a zipper.
And that's the same reason.
And I don't lose my stuff.
And that's the same reason why they wouldn't go to Trent or House of Charity.
Right.
Because they don't have a door. They have to check their stuff in.
They might lose it.
And
you can only bring so much.
Yeah. And so that's when we realized we need to do this differently. House of Charity, mission accomplished for 25 years and actually now for 68 years total in the old location and the current one. It's been a perfect thing. There's been 3 million bed nights at the House of Charity since we opened it.
Where was it originally before
On
that?
Main Street.
So on Main Street, it was there back in 68. Yeah,
well, I think we opened in 50 something.
Wow. So there was a congregate shelter. That was how it was done.
Yeah, it was. And
For
when we built the new one,
years.
we built the current one, we did it the same way, just much bigger.
Right.
Now, we'll never build another one like that because we know people need if you were homeless tonight, would you rather sleep in a room with a door and a key where you're by yourself or in a room with 100 other guys?
And you have a bathroom.
And you have a bathroom.
It's
no question.
No.
Now, also, the homeless
No question.
clientele has changed. When I started 24 years ago, the House of Charity was filled with 50 and over chronic old guy riding the rails, chronic inebriate.
The hobo, as we would have called them back in the day, or they were called.
Yes. And they would come to the House of Charity and kind of sleep it off, right? And that crowd is gone now. It's been replaced by a 20-something-year-old fentanyl addict, opioid addict.
Wow.
And that's a whole different ball game.
Wow.
There's mental health issues there. Wow. There's trauma that has gone on in their lives that's there, and you cannot put them all in the same room snoring on top of each other because it just makes them more vulnerable, more fragile, more hurt.
Wow. So I asked my team, I'm like, do you have a question for Rob? Because they've been around you, and we've been seeing some of this stuff. And Taylor had a great. He's just like, what would you tell young Rob at 23 who was just starting to go around the world? Rob now.
I think I would probably tell him, less of the New York City hockey player, which is I am both of those things, and more of the Mother Teresa, kind, gentle, calm, soft-spoken. I'm not good at that. My genetic makeup is...
It's your spiritual practice, Rob.
I played hockey, and I played at high school and college level, and it wasn't because I could skate fast or score goals. You could do the math when I was good.
Yeah, you were the bruiser.
And I have to fight that tendency in my work life because people come at us, right? Or people come at the poor.
They do.
And I want to, okay, let's go. I'm going to be the voice for stand up for these folks. And that's not always the best path. Nonviolence.
But it's you.
De-escalation. But it's also, I have to understand it's my personality.
Yeah.
So I think I would tell my younger self, be careful of that.
Yeah.
Because that it serves you in some moments. But also it can hurt you in some moments. You have to be able to listen to people, collaborate with people, even when they disagree with you.
Let go.
Even when they're angry, not get defensive, and that's hard for all of us. But it's also hard when you feel like you're the only one, you're the voice for the voiceless. Like they're not going to be able to defend themselves and no one else is gonna. Right. So I feel like I better say something here, right? But
true.
But I better be careful how I say it because you don't want to escalate conflict. You want to de-escalate it.
Well, that's true. I mean, so are you going to keep the House of Charity open? What's the plan?
Yeah. So House of Charity, what we're going to do is transition it. So it looks.
You are going to transition it?
Yeah. The House of Charity where it is
Doesn't
right
worry,
now is going to close eventually. I think that's not news anymore. We are going to find another spot that looks a lot like Catalyst, where everyone has their own room, same services. We're going to we're going to have a laser focus on senior citizens who are homeless, people who are coming out of the hospital who are homeless, and hospice. There is nowhere to die with dignity if you're a homeless person in Spokane.
Wow.
So we're going to build hospice
right.
suites just as nice as Hospice House. And so right now what we have is guys die in their bed in the House of Charity. They pass away in their sleep.
Jeez.
That should not happen.
No.
They need to have the same hospice house suite that you and I
Yeah,
would send your mom or dad
my
to.
dad was at house.
Yeah.
I literally did.
And it needs to be
it was an
quiet,
incredible
peaceful,
experience for him.
and spiritual
And
welcoming.
elegant and nice. And
so we're going to build that into a new location. I don't know
God bless
where.
you.
So I'll predict your next question. I can't tell you where. We're looking at all options. We're looking at all buildings, all hotels. It's a lot cheaper to do that than to build from scratch. But if we have to, we'll build from scratch. We're pretty good at building things at Catholic Charities. We got 4 projects we're building just this year. Wow. We build
Where
2
are
or
they?
3 a year. This year we're building in Clarkston, Colville, Twisp, way up in Twisp,
No
and
way.
one in Spokane with the Sailor School.
Wow. So when you tell me how Catalyst happened.
Catalyst happened as a result of Camp Hope.
Right.
And Camp Hope was happening. We have a very clear stance on this and have for 40 years at Catholic Charities. We believe no human being should eat, sleep, or go to the bathroom outdoors ever. The greatest country in the history of the world, we need to be better than that. So we've been very vocal that no one should be camping outside, ever, period. So Camp Hope for us was, this is not human dignity. This is not health and safety. And it's the community's responsibility to make sure there are enough shelter beds and enough housing where people can get in and not sleep outside under a bridge or at Camp Hope or anywhere else. But when Camp Hope was happening, the state of Washington showed up and said, listen, we've got all this Department of Transportation right-of-way money that they've never really spent. Let's use that to fix Camp Hope because it's on DOT land.
Yeah.
And one of the options was, who in this town could find a building right now, renovate it in 60 days, and open it and operate it
60 days.
60 days, 60 days.
Too
Who
much.
could do that? And Catholic Charities was asked, and we said, yeah, we can do that. I'm not sure anyone else could have done it. I don't know how we did it.
I was going to say,
I thought it was a terrible
that's
idea
nuts. Did
when it was
you?
first pitched to me. And there's no way, but we did it. And we got it open.
did do it.
We gutted those rooms. We rebuilt them. They were all meth contaminated. The Quality Inn had been one of the top 3 calls for service for 911 for the last, 10 years.
So the police were there.
The police were there all the time. It was drug infested, crime infested. We gutted everything. We mitigated for meth contamination. They had meth lab level contamination in 80 out of 87 rooms.
No way.
Fixed it all up and moved people out of Camp Hope into Catalyst. And what we realized instantly was I could walk through Camp Hope and say, who wants to come to the House of Charity? Crickets. I could walk through Camp Hope and say, who wants to come to Catalyst? Everyone in that camp lined up and wanted to get into Catalyst. So
kidding.
it tells us that that's the future, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to do more of that.
Yeah.
And
Well, you got to
of course,
listen. You actually listened to the homeless.
well, that's the thing to do. And of course, when we did that, the first thing that happened is the West Hills neighborhood exploded, attacked us, and we said, listen, we are going to do a good job. We're going to be good neighbors. And they said, that's not true. And here we are a year and a half later, and you interviewed our neighbors.
I did.
And they told you it's the best the neighborhood's been in 10 years.
Unbelievable. We did it. Yeah, we did a video. I don't know, a month ago.
Crime is gone.
Yeah,
The police are gone. The prostitution, the drugs,
incredible.
it's gone.
Yeah.
The homicides are gone.
Dorian Studios right across the street from this place, right? And I've known the Mark family forever. John runs it now. I knew his dad. I worked for them as a kid in college. And John shows up to be interviewed, and I'm like, hey, what's it like? I mean, he's got an office right across the street, and he's like, we were going to put a fence up. We were going to fence our building because here come all the people from Camp Hope. And I mean, that, we in the video that we put out, we pulled video from the news clips of how angry people were at that meeting. And it was crazy busy, pissed at you guys. And then fast forward a year and a half now, or whatever it's been, John's like, nobody in our place ever cares about it. Nobody asks about it. It's cleaner than it ever was. It's safer than it ever was. Yeah. In fact, if anything, we all as neighbors want to take one of the other hotels that's right across the street from Catalyst and do the same thing.
They've asked me already. Yeah.
I mean, so good on you. I bet you didn't think that was going to happen. Did you? Or maybe you did. Maybe you saw this.
We've been building for years. When I started Catholic Charities, we had 9 apartment complexes. We have 71 now.
Holy crap.
We are professionally competent developers. We build a couple new ones a year. And no matter where we build, no matter what we build,
most of that is paid for.
There's going to be a backlash.
Most of that's paid for by who?
The IRS, tax credits.
That's exactly right.
I don't have to raise any donated dollars. It's tax credits. And everywhere we build, whether it's TWSP or Spokane or Clarkston, there's always going to be the initial reaction to be, oh my God, Catholic, those people are going to be near my house or my business.
Yes.
It's going to be a disaster.
In my backyard.
NIMBYism, right?
Yeah.
It's everywhere in America.
Yep.
It's in Spokane. It's to be expected. I mean, we live in a town that goes to a blood sport battle over citing a Chick-fil-A in a dog park. Of course they're going to go to battle over citing something for the poor. I'm not surprised at that. We're ready for that. But we will talk with everyone. We are happy to engage with anyone that wants to have a conversation in a mature, professional, polite way.
Right.
Without death threats and profanities.
Right. Which you get.
Which we get.
So you got
from a very small number, not the majority.
But you've gotten that.
Absolutely. Personally.
And your family.
My house has been graffitied. I've had people put flyers on every door in my neighborhood calling me an awful person who's ruining Spokane. I've had death threats on the phone, in person. You got to call the police every time this crap happens. And here's the thing: there's 3,400 residents in the West Hills. There's about a dozen of those folks that are just obsessed, that have gone off the deep end.
Still?
Now it's down to 2 or 3 that are daily posters on Facebook or attackers.
Yes.
But they're the ones, and they know exactly who they are, and we know exactly who they are.
And you've got a business group that's doing that.
And we've got a business group of 2 or 3 guys do the same thing. And it's all the same vein. It's all the same idea of, I want you to be afraid of the homeless and the poor. I want you to be angry at them and at anyone who dares to serve them. And I'm going to convince you that these people are going to take money out of your pockets and my pockets. Catholic Charities is going to take money out of your pockets and mine. So at the end of the day, it comes down to greed. And we're not going to respond to that. We will talk to any neighbor. I have been in dozens of meetings with neighborhoods as we're going to build a new project, and they ask questions, and it sometimes gets heated, but I was never in one like that West Hills one.
Never.
So people screaming the F word nonstop. Wow. You couldn't even answer a question because they interrupted you to scream
it
again.
No way.
And for that kind of stuff, we're not going to engage with that. Those 2 or 3 people in West Hills who post every day on Facebook, and the 2 or 3 commercial real estate guys in downtown Spokane who send emails out every day, they're obsessed. They are not taken seriously by anyone. They are not a voice of gravitas. They are not a respected voice. They want you to be afraid of the homeless, angry at the homeless, angry at anyone who serves the homeless, and they want you to join them in their fever swamp.
Which gets kind of old after a while.
Yeah, we all know people like this in our lives. You know people in our family, in our friends, our neighbor group, our work. That one person that they're never happy unless they're always pissed off and angry at somebody or something.
And they want you to share it.
They want to pull you into that echo chamber.
Yeah, that energy.
And for those 2 or 3 people, we ignore them. In fact, I'm thankful for them. The first thing I do for them is I pray for them because their hearts have been hardened and they clearly are damaged people themselves. The second thing I do is I thank them because the truth is that those couple people who post every day and call me out by name and attack me and threaten me and my family, come to my home, those people, I thank them because they remind me every day that they are the gas in my engine. They are the reason I'm going to keep going. We're going to keep serving the poor. We are going to keep fulfilling our mission.
I bet.
And they are not, those couple voices are not going to overwhelm the other 3,000 residents of West Hills who are not like that, who are kind, compassionate, wonderful people, most of whom, by the way, approach me in the grocery store around town or wherever. And I go, oh, here we go. Someone leads with, I live in the West Hills. I'm like, here it comes. And the first thing they tell me is, those 2 or 3 people that post every day on that awful Facebook page, they don't speak for me. And
That's
I don't
cool.
agree. I don't agree with them.
That's cool.
And I call this the grocery store algorithm. I think I've told you this before.
No.
I do all the cooking and grocery shopping in my house,
wow.
and so I'm in the grocery store all the time. We had Spokane Chiefs living in our basement for 16 years.
That's right.
They eat a lot. I'm in the grocery store every day, and so in the grocery store, because I'm on TV or in the paper or on podcast, everyone knows who I am.
Yeah.
And people, every time I go to the grocery store, people come up to me. And for most of my 24 years, I'd say almost all of them, except the last couple, 10 out of 10 come up to me and say, God bless you. Thank you for the work you're doing. It must be really hard. I'm praying for you. Great. Who doesn't love that?
That's
right?
awesome.
The last couple years, it's changed.
Yeah, it is.
Good news, bad news. The good news is still 9 out of 10 say thank you and God bless you.
Wow, that's cool.
Bad news is now 1 out of 10 is screaming the F word at me in the produce section,
Jesus.
telling me I've ruined Spokane.
Wow.
And that's new. And that's because
What did you do the first time that
these
happened?
small groups of people want to suck others into their fever swamp,
Yep.
into their echo chambers of hate and anger and fear. And what I say to the Spokane community is, don't get sucked into that. Our region is 500,000 people. The overwhelming majority of them are kind, generous, loving, caring, compassionate people. These 2 or 3 in downtown, or these 2 or 3 that post in the West Hills, they don't speak for the other 500,000. The other 500,000 would not agree with any of that.
See, and Mother Teresa would say to you, you need to be the hockey guy. That's when you do need to be the hockey guy. You do.
Well,
I mean, you do.
It's a double-edged sword.
But if people don't stand up to the bully, right?
Well, and for some people that are so toxic that it's about profanity and screaming and threats.
Yeah, that's.
I don't
what is
even
that?
engage with them. I won't even engage with them at all. The person who screams the F word at me in the grocery store.
The first time that happened,
I tell them I'm going to pray for him.
First time that happened, what'd you do? Because it couldn't have been that long ago that started that stuff started happening.
It's been a couple of years. I'd say the last 3 or 4 years. I think it shocks you the first time. For me, I can remember the first time it happened. It was in Red Robin downtown. I'm eating with my family, and a guy comes up to me. He's dressed in like a jacket and tie, like well dressed. And he comes in and he's walking up to me. Are you Rob McCann? And I'm like, because people come up to me. Yeah. And I reach my hand out because I figured he wanted to introduce himself. Yeah. And he slaps my hand away and you're fucking ruining Spokane. Now, my 12-year-old daughter's right there. Jeez. My wife, my son. And I'm like, whoa. Okay,
what the hell?
I got chicken clucks here and fries and an Oreo magic shake. And this guy's dropping the F-bomb. Now, in that moment, the first time that happened,
drop the gloves.
The hockey player, New Yorker, I instantly and he did this and said this and walked out.
Yeah.
And I stood up and I followed him outside. And all I remember, because I was enraged, and all I can remember is my daughter saying, "Daddy, come back to the table."
Ooh, thank God she said that.
And thank God, because here's the thing. Catholic Charities CEO beats the crap out of some dude at Red Robin.
Speaking of
not a good headline.
Optics.
Not a good optic.
You're probably not
and
sitting
that's
here.
where that was going to be headed.
Yeah.
Because, he just dropped the F-bomb on my daughter.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just
no kidding.
so far out of bounds.
Yeah.
You don't even engage with that.
Yeah.
And people who are so clearly just about their own personal wealth and greed, or, people who are saying, the neighborhood's going to be ruined if you build here. My property value is going to go down. Fun fact, people who like numbers, we have 102 locations at Catholic Charities. Go to the county assessor website in every county we're in. We're in almost every county. And then look at the Catholic Charities address and look at what the property values of the 10 neighboring properties of that address were before we built, and look at it now. In every single case, you're going to see property values have skyrocketed. Let's take the most profound example, House of Charity. Ruined the whole neighborhood. Oh my God, it's terrible. The properties around the House of Charity, since I built it 24 years ago, have doubled or tripled in value. That's not me. That's the county assessor.
That's right.
And I also know that because I've bought some of that property and I've paid double or triple.
Right. Well,
and so the idea that property value is going to go down, it's part of the fever swamp. It's the echo chamber. There's just no mathematical truth to it.
No. And in fact, conversely, another way to look at that is Gavin Cooley's been on here, obviously, because he, was for people who don't know, the CFO of the city of Spokane for nearly 20 years, 6 different mayors. 3 Republican, 3 Democrat, and he, hosted Housing and Help. And in our look at that, one of the things he said to me, and we didn't even use it in the show, was we are a victim of success, actually. Because in terms of this town, people have moved in, the property values it was an affordable place to live, everybody comes here, we didn't build enough, like you said, and suddenly, because of that success, there is no place to live. Yeah. And you have people that were at Camp Hope that we talked to that I would say the guesstimate that Jules Helping Hands had that worked there every day was about 30% of the people that lived at Camp Hope actually had full-time jobs. And that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen 4 years before, 2 years before. But it did because people cannot afford to actually live when there's
nowhere to go.
It's a house. Yeah. You're in an apartment, right? And we interviewed some of the people that actually ended up eventually at Gonzaga Family Haven, which is another incredible story of what you guys have done, I think, that really had really nice family. They're paying $800 a month for a little, maybe 3-bedroom place. It's not that long ago, maybe 5 years ago. Today, that's $2,000.
Yeah.
Now, their income didn't increase.
Yeah.
What are you going to do when you can't make rent?
Well, you're going to couch surf. You're going to crash with friends. Then you're going to live in your car. Then you're going to be in Camp Hope.
And
that's a progression.
That's exactly, and you see it every day. And that was not the case 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It just wasn't.
And times have changed. And even with, you look at our locations, property values have gone up. But in truth, in fairness, because people are watching this now calling bullshit left and right. The truth is, property values have gone up, but what do you do about those 20 people hanging out in that neighborhood in front of every building? Because that's not good for retail business in the area.
Right.
And so you have to have some discernment about what business you're going to put in that area. Now, House of Charity, if you look at all the businesses around House of Charity, we were there before all of them. People have moved in and opened businesses, and some of them have worked and some of them have not. I can remember my teenage son back when the coffee stand first opened up across the street there. And you may remember, it was like a bikini coffee stand.
Yeah, that's right.
And it was a disaster.
Yeah,
and
work.
my teenage son they opened a bikini coffee stand across the street from a homeless shelter. What did they think was going to happen, Dad? And so some of that is true. But there's a critical mass of people in the neighborhood. The police can't do much about them.
Right.
And so there's truth to that. Like that does harm retail business and foot traffic and people's sense of safety.
Right.
And so we got to do something about that.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that what you and I had talked about a few years ago, we actually did a video about it, was Rob's math.
Yeah.
Can you explain that? Because I was blown away by that.
Yeah, the
math, way you had thought about it.
First of all, the problem of homelessness is, people, the first thing that people will do is try and convince you it can't be fixed, it can't be solved. Here's the truth. We can drop a Mars rover on a dime 60 million miles away. I can read the whole Library of Congress on my cell phone. You can't tell me we can't solve homelessness. Of course we can, in the greatest country in the history of the world. Yeah. So first of all, there's that math. Second of all, the reality is the math of being homeless or being in a community that is afflicted with homelessness is profound. The reality is it's $3,200 and some odd a night, state annualized cost per night to be in a hospital bed.
So how much is that again?
$3,200 a night, give or take.
3,000,
yeah.
$3,200 to be
$1,200 a night to be in Eastern State Hospital. It's it's $150 a night to be in jail. It's the cost per unit at the House of Charities $11.22. And so economically, the math here is pretty easy to figure out. Where does the community want to spend its resources?
Right.
When we're constantly having calls for service because there's a medical emergency or something's happened, and every time there's a 911 call in this town, police car, fire truck, and ambulance all roll.
Yeah.
Now, every time that happens, if that happens 10 times a day at the House of Charity, that's 10 times a day where if you're up on the South Hill and you have a heart attack, instead of them getting there in 3 minutes, it might be 8 minutes. You might be dead. So as a taxpayer, where do you want to spend your money? Do you want it $3,000 a night, $1,200 a night, $200 a night, or do you want to spend $11 a night? The average chronic homeless superutilizer in downtown Spokane spends anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 per year per person on police, fire, ambulance, hospital, ER, jail, court costs, social services.
So what's that number? How much?
Anywhere from $50,000 to $250,000 per year per person is what it costs the community.
Well, Houston, when we went to visit them, the county had studied it and they had it down. And this was 2 years ago, and they have a better handle on homelessness than we do. $96,000 for them per person on the impact that it has on the community if they're homeless.
So
and conversely, if you are housed with services, 17.
Well, and in fact,
5 times more.
In Spokane, it's better than that. If it's $50,000 to $250,000 per person per year being on the streets, being homeless, in what they're spending in government taxpayer funded resources, You can move into one of our havens, and the total cost per year is about 10 grand.
Crazy.
So where does the community want to spend its money? That becomes the mathematical question.
So-
and then on top of that, there's this whole other thing called human dignity. You know,
Well,
and,
yeah,
and what
yeah.
should, how should
Well,
we
and-
treat human beings? You know,
Right.
that factors into the math too.
Yeah. Well, and that's why for Housing and Help, we really focused on I thought it was important that Gavin be the host of that, because he's a money guy.
Yeah.
You know, that he's really about. It was like, no matter who you are, right or left, have empathy or don't, care about the homeless or don't. We're all spending 5 times more every day than we should.
Yeah.
And you're proof of that. Like, you guys are proof of that. And so I look at
The answer is build more housing. But every time we
is.
try and build housing, here come the death threats and the lawsuits and everything.
because you don't want it in my yard.
Because I don't want it anywhere near me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. So one of the other models that I think is incredible is Gonzaga Family Haven, and that is such a smart thing. And I'm just wondering how it's been 2 years in now.
It's been going
because
great. I mean,
just for people that don't know, this is a place that was, kind of a big empty lot right by Gonzaga Prep,
Yep.
North Foothills and Hamilton, and you put a housing complex there. But it's more than that. It's just for families. And we have interviewed some amazing people, including Jerica Ford, who she and her husband Jeff both are a byproduct of an crazy walking testament. If you haven't seen that podcast, go watch.
Both of them
Jerica.
work for us.
They both work for you,
Full-time
and
professional
honestly,
jobs.
save their lives. Yeah. I mean, the Rising Strong program that you guys have, which is taking families that otherwise would be split apart, and dad goes down the fentanyl meth track and he'll never come back, kind of forcing them to be together. Yeah. They graduate from that. They get clean and sober. They're going back to school.
And they move into Gonzaga
Haven.
Haven.
Into Gonzaga Haven, and we interviewed them like a week before they went, and they were scared. Yeah. They were scared. We've been clean for a year. We've been in this program. We're rising strong. We're doing well. What's going to happen now? What's going to happen now when we go to the next step? Are we going to be okay? Because now that I'm back out into the world, am I going to be tempted again? They go to Gonzaga Family Haven. Incredible resources there. Pegheim McCune's incredible. The connection to G-Prep, which I thought, this sounds nice, but really, are you going to have prep kids over there all the time mentoring? Yeah.
They are.
More than ever.
And GU kids. Too.
And GU kids are there all the time mentoring these guys.
Yeah.
And the families have thrived.
Yeah.
I mean, am I right about that?
Yeah, I mean that's the model,
That's the experience
right?
I've seen.
You take someone out of homelessness. Gonzaga Family Haven is 72 units, family housing for people coming out of homelessness. We have bunches of those buildings all over Eastern Washington. Gonzaga Family Haven gets the most press because it's got the magic word in it.
Gonzaga, hello.
Yeah. And so,
and you do
for those
have
families, but we have services on site. That's the
Right.
key is you can't give someone a key to an apartment
That's
and say, you've been homeless for 6 months or 6 years. Here's your key. Good luck.
Right.
We say, here's your key, but in the building is mental health counselors, substance abuse counselors, case managers, life skills classes, everything you need to know to be successful and stay here in the building. That's why it works. You can't just say to someone, well, you've been in the House of Charity. Here's your key to Father Bach Haven. I hope you do okay, because it won't work 10 times out of 10.
Well, and what pisses me off is when people say housing first is, you just give them a key and they walk in there. Forgetting that services is the big piece to this. That's why we named our show Housing and Help. You've got to equally have the both.
Yeah.
You can't, it's not housing with help. It's housing and help. Like they both
when you have
equally.
housing and help, it's successful. But here's the reality, in fairness to the haters who might be watching. In some places in this country,
there are no haters watching this podcast.
well, in some places in the U.S., people do build housing first buildings, and they do just give them the key. And
Do they really?
Absolutely. You're allowed to do it that way.
Stupid.
We don't do it that way, but others do, and then people that had that experience, like, well, that building is a disaster. Of
course it
because
is.
there's no services in the building.
Right.
And you had...
That's called the project.
You had 50 people move in that were struggling with behavioral health. They haven't changed any of those medical problems, and now they're just deteriorating in an apartment rather than a shelter bed
By themselves,
or on the
without
street.
help.
We don't do it that way, but other parts of the country do. There are other providers who build housing first in Spokane who do it that way. We do not. But we get lumped in with the national message
exactly.
of housing first is a failure.
Right.
And it's, it's the
So it is a
reality
failure in some other places, but no, it's not.
yeah. I mean, the reality is that when I get people who are fired up and they're willing to have a conversation, the first thing I do is I take them on a tour.
Yeah.
And as soon as they walk in the House of Charity or walk in one of the havens, they're like, oh my God, this is not what I was expecting.
Right.
They were expecting a scene out of Caligula and Dante's Inferno. And instead they get this quiet, beautiful, clean, pristine environment.
Right.
And they're like, this is not what I thought. When I drive by this, I didn't think that's what it looked like.
Exactly what we
and then when
thought
they
we went
see
in
it, they instantly become a convert of, oh my God, this is not at all what I thought.
Well, and that's why I just thought when I heard housing first, I'm like, that's a bad brand. That's a bad story problem. Housing and help is
Permanent
better.
supportive housing.
You've got
Housing
permanent
with
support
services.
with services. So that leads me to when you did, getting the chance about 2 weeks ago now, maybe I can't believe it was that quick a time, maybe 3. We interviewed one of the residents. I got the privilege really of interviewing you and interviewing this guy named Ross, who is an incredible dude.
Ross is a great story.
An incredible story. So he's at, and I've heard, are people really making it? And I met Jarek and Jeff Ford, and I'm like, well, they do. This family made it. I mean, they really did. They got there. They thrived. Now they're just. I never forget the story of Jarek came in here to do an interview about 8 months after she had left the program, had been after she'd moved into Kentucky Family Haven, and I literally didn't recognize her. I'm like, who is that? She was dressed. She held herself high. She was confident. I literally did not recognize her. She was a totally different person, right? Something had happened to her. Just everything had happened to her. Good. And when I met Ross, and I'm like, does this really work? Okay, maybe it works for Jerica. She did have some problems, but it wasn't chronic. We're not talking about a chronic situation there. We just aren't. With Ross, this is a guy, 20 years, chronically homeless in Spokane. Like moved here lived here when he was 25, had a job, everything was fine, then just decides to start doing meth and picks that over his family, over his work, deteriorates, and he's basically, right? 20 years completely homeless, lost his teeth, just gave his life to meth. And then you guys come along at Camp Hope, where he said it was as bad as it was good. There were good things and bad, but horrible, really, situation. He comes out of there and says, all right, wait, you're going to give me a bed and I can actually, he goes, the hot water sold me. That was the line I'll never forget. He's like, and they didn't rush me out of there, which is the other part of this. So he goes in there, he gets his own room, he shuts the door, he has his own bathroom, and he literally can just be there without anybody bugging him and pushing him to go to anything. We're like, hey, there's food here when you want it. And he said he slept for about 5 days because he hadn't slept in 20 years. Okay. Took him over 30 days to get his body clean, like bath after bath after bath. The grime that had been on his body for 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. I mean, the guy's in his late 40s now. He, to me, looks older than you and I, okay? But he looks handsome. He's got his teeth now, which you guys services helped get him that. He's got his dignity. He wants to go back to school. He's in that same place Jerica and Jeff were. I'm scared that I will go back. Maybe I'll relapse if I go into the world. What's next for me? But I'm excited to. Yeah. He's talked to his daughter, which he hadn't talked to in years. Did not know he had a granddaughter and now does. Has never met her. And is going through those conversations. I mean, and when I asked Gordon, hey, can you send me somebody who runs Catalyst? Do you got anybody good? He's like, he came up to me after, and I'm like, that is one of the most incredible interviews I've ever been a part of in my life. I mean, that story that he told of where he is now a year later and has not been pushed out of there, not been forced by you guys to go into some program, into anything. He's made it on his own. He's stuck on his own. He's clean for 8 months. He said, he was my fourth choice. like he's not the only one here. Sometimes
exactly.
as a storyteller and a video guy, they trot out the success story and everybody else is not there.
You've stumbled into a big piece of this, which is perception and reality.
Yes.
The reality is in our homeless housing at Catholic Charities, we have a 93% success rate. We measure everything at Catholic Charities. We measure that too.
What does that mean?
93% success rate is a HUD definition saying you come from homelessness, you move into housing. Are you still stably housed 2 years later?
2 years? Yeah.
Yes. And 93%. Wow. 93% of the time, that's exactly what happens.
Wow.
But that's reality. Perception is the truth. the 7%, people don't ever talk about the 93%. They only talk about the 7%. Why? Because when our people fail, they fail spectacularly. And it involves the front page of the paper, a SWAT team, the fire department, and everyone sees it and hears about it.
It's expensive and noisy.
And so the perception is the whole building is that 7% of failure. Right. The truth is inverted. The whole building is a 93% success. But once in a while, we have someone who becomes a life or death danger to themselves or others. We have to tell them, you're not ready for this apartment. We need to bring you back to the shelter, get you stable. And sometimes they don't wait for us to tell them that.
Right.
And they blow up in their apartment.
Right.
Literally and figuratively. Because we've had people set their apartments on fire.
Wow.
Because they just were deteriorating. And so that's what people focus on. They focus on the 7% that don't work, and they forget about the fact that 93% of the time it works great. 93% of the time, it's what you saw at Catalyst.
100%. And this guy, I mean, he looks amazing. I'm like, he looks like a movie star. Like, the guy's a handsome dude, and he's really getting his confidence back. He's going to get married, all this stuff. And I'm like, that just makes sense. I mean, if you don't push them and you do give them the things that they need, my biggest concern, I guess, as I look forward to this is, how do you replicate this, man? Because you're right. We drove around in your car downtown and we drove back up to Catalyst, and the shining kind of example on the hill, and the reality down here is it's still really hard. How do we get those people there? And you're like, I guess my question to you is, do you think if you built enough of those?
Yeah, I mean, any good business is going to be successful if you're nimble and you can pivot.
And this is different. These are different than a Haven.
So Catalyst is temporary emergency housing. It's a hotel room. There's no kitchen. We're going to give you all your meals. The mental health, substance abuse services on site, security on site. Everyone who comes and goes, you check in and out with us all the time. An apartment, one of the Havens, is just like if you rented an apartment out of college. Yeah. You come and go as you please. As long as you pay your rent, no one talks to you ever.
Right.
But in our apartments, we have all these extra staff on site who do talk to you every day.
Right.
So you become
and there are services available there.
So the replicatable thing, as a good business, you got to be able to pivot. So, and that's for not just Catholic Charities, that's for everyone. The commercial real estate people
every time you do
that like to attack me downtown, what they're mad about is that their office space is empty.
That's right.
And because COVID taught the country that you don't need office space.
Well, that's
so
exactly
they need
right.
to pivot.
But you're an easy target.
They need to turn that office space into residential units.
That's right.
And then their business will be successful. If they don't, it'll fail.
Oh, that's
At
smart.
Catholic Charities, we see the House of Charity, Congregate Shelter, not working as well as it did 25 years ago. Catalyst, we opened that up. It worked great. It's not rocket science.
You're going to pivot.
Do more like Catalyst.
You're going to pivot.
Do less like House of Charity.
Yeah.
So we're going to pivot. We're going to be nimble. We're going to say House of Charity's been great. We're glad that we had it all these years.
It taught us a lot.
And now we have more information, more knowledge, and we have a proof of concept, and we know it works better doing it this way. Now, is a bed with 150 other guys a good option if you're going to freeze to death otherwise? Of course. Of course. But if we can do it even better, and Catalyst is even better, we're going to do it even better. So House of Charity is going to sunset, and you're going to see more programs like Catalyst because the model is trauma informed and it works.
Well, one of the things we learned from Houston was, and that they recommended after really 10 years of incredible success, while our homeless population went up almost 70%, theirs dropped 65, right? Was you can't just have homelessness in certain places in town. It is a community-wide problem. Yep. It needs to be dispersed around. It needs to be a dispersed model. And the hotels give you that option. There's hotels everywhere that don't work, right? Yeah. Or similar kinds of properties. If they can be converted, my big question about all of this is, are there enough people to give good service? How do you do that? You've got an incredible team.
It's hard.
At Catalyst.
There's not a lot of people who want to go into this line of work anymore.
I know it. Or is there?
Well, I mean,
so you got a girl that works for you up at Catalyst. I won't say her name, but she's a friend of my daughter's. I'll say her name. Her name's Sophia. She's incredible. And she loves this work. She's 23-ish. Yeah. And I think there is an army of these kind of Gen Xers who are going,
we've got 38 open positions at Catholic Charities as I sit here today.
Really?
So we need more people
to
choose this work. And it's hard to find someone who says, yeah, I want a job where I can immerse myself in the lives of people who are suffering every day.
Yeah.
Who says that?
That's a lot.
Like you have to.
It takes a
something
special
has to
person.
be loose up here to say that.
Well,
but the
or
reality
here.
is we have people with heart.
Yeah,
and they want to do this work.
Yeah.
We need more mental health counselors. We need more substance abuse counselors. There's not enough people going into that work. It's very hard to hire for that work. But you're right. If we're going to open a couple more buildings that look like Catalyst, you also need all those staff, and it needs to be 24/7, and it needs to be professional people who know what they're doing. And we will hopefully accomplish that. That is going to be the goal. You're right about it being dispersed. The problem is,
nobody wants it in their backyard.
Citing Catalyst was a bloodbath. Now try citing a dozen of these.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be really difficult. But at Catholic Charities, that's what we do. We do really difficult. Yeah. That's our gig. That's our jam. And so we're going to step up, and other great nonprofits in town are going to step up, and you're going to see more places like Catalyst. You're probably going to see less places like House of Charity in Trent, and that's probably okay.
Yeah, it is.
And we will eventually serve enough people where there's no one sleeping outside, and then we get a handle on it.
I was going to ask you, do you think there'll ever be a time when I drive downtown and I don't experience this like maybe 10 years ago? I think you'll always have a certain percentage of the population. Yeah. I think you will, but not at the level it is now.
Are you gonna eliminate homelessness? No. As we're having this podcast, someone is becoming newly homeless. Someone is being evicted. Someone is moving into their car. Someone's been kicked out of their couch surfing, and now they're homeless. So that's going to always happen. But we can certainly get ahead of it. We do not have a Seattle or a Portland-sized homelessness problem.
No, we don't.
In terms of chronic street homelessness.
That's right.
For single adults.
That's right.
We have a solvable number in Spokane, and if you have enough nonprofits who are willing to do something that looks something like Catalyst, you will solve this problem. You won't eliminate it, but you can solve it. In a way that's compassionate.
You can manage it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's what Denise Parker, Mayor of Houston, said. She goes, I think you'll always have homelessness, but can you manage it? I don't think you'll solve it, but you can manage it.
Absolutely.
And I think if you had, you said, man, if we had 10 catalysts right now, you wouldn't experience this problem down here. You would not experience the level of which
you don't even need 10. You don't even need 10. But for the record, you could do 10. There are absolutely 10 1, 2, or 3-star hotels or motels in this town.
Is that right?
That if I called them and said, do you want to sell your building? They'd say, please, God, yes. So the sites are out there.
Hell, this is it, man.
I mean, it's a fixable thing. It's a solvable problem. The reality, though, is that we have to get the whole community on board.
Yeah.
And it can't be fear and anger and hate.
No.
It has to be hope and joy and love.
That's right. But the cost is so much more if you don't. Not just in human, dignity and all of
Your
that
tax
stuff.
dollars.
But the dollars themselves.
Absolutely.
I mean, every time you graduate a Ross out of Camp Hope into Catalyst and into his own world,
you're going to save the community money.
You already absolutely going to save.
Big money.
Big money. I mean, 5 times, easy, maybe more. Yeah, I hope enough people get that figured out. There's a guy named Alan Giebel that I had on my podcast, and I went to high school with him, and he lives in Singapore now. Very successful business guy, and he's been watching, America from Singapore afar for 30 years. And I'm just like, what do you see about it? He goes, man, it's not a good look, man. This country's not what it was when I grew up there. And as I watch it sort of deteriorate, I said, what would you do if you get to wave your magic wand, Alan, for the U.S. from this view? And he goes, you know what? I'd do what Singapore does. I would institute a mandatory service for everybody 18 to 21. That you have to go into the way you did. Basically, you have to do some kind of service. It's not military service. He's talking social service. That everybody has to do their turn at some point in their lives to give back to the community for what they get. And he said it's the best way. You're going to meet the best friends of your life. You're going to meet, that kind of thing. I don't think it would ever be done here, but that it might be what it needs, right? To sort of to make this.
And you need some
possible.
Kind of big change, right? You need some kind of decision on leadership. And at the end of the day, the resources are there. That if you look at the most conservative, most right of center think tank that looks at this issue, they say, it's $250 billion if you want to solve homelessness in the United States. $250 billion with a B. Now, I don't know if it's really that much.
But let's say it is.
Let's say that it is. Okay, let's say that it is. $250 billion. Okay, during COVID, I think we gave $250 billion just to the airlines, hotels, cruise industry alone.
Bail out. Yeah.
The reality is you got to have decision making, and it has to be at the federal level. Now, I love our country. I love our men and women in the armed services. I love that when I was overseas, I had people protecting me that wore U.S. military uniforms. We need that. But look at the federal government budget. We're spending $800 billion on defense. We're spending $30 billion on HUD, on all the homelessness stuff and the housing stuff.
That's just out of whack.
$800 billion, and yet the cast of Duck Dynasty and a guy wearing a Chewbacca bikini took the Capitol in 4 hours. But we're spending $800 billion on defense. Build one less aircraft carrier next year, and let's solve homelessness.
Right.
Something along those lines has to get spoken.
It has
to get decided.
Right.
And that trickles down. Even the city of Spokane, the city of Spokane Valley, and the county, you combine those three budgets, it's like $3 billion a year. You're telling me we can't solve homelessness in Spokane with $3 billion to work with? You don't need anywhere near that much.
Well, and that leads me to Houston solved it. Their best. They manage it better than anybody in America now, and they funneled it all into a regional plan, a regional approach. What do you think of this regional plan?
I've had a lot of conversations about that. I still think it's a great idea. That it worked in Houston because it was a regional approach where everyone agreed. Nonprofits, elected officials, businesses, real estate people, everyone said, we're all in this together. We're going to stop fighting each other, blaming and attacking each other, and we're going to solve this together. But that came with some conditions. At Houston, that part of the reason it worked is because every time they said, okay, we need more shelter beds, we need more housing, let's build it. And the NIMBY attacks came. What did the mayor do in Houston?
Built it.
Yeah, she said, too bad, so sad.
That's exactly right.
We're doing this.
We're doing this.
And the regional group all agreed, we're doing this.
They backed her up.
And it didn't matter who complained.
That's right.
Or who called their elected official and said, I'm not going to donate to your campaign anymore.
Right.
Or threatened to sue.
Oh, it took 10 years.
It didn't matter.
Yeah.
They did it anyway.
Right.
And I think a regional approach works for that reason. The voice of the common good, the voice of the many, has to outweigh the voice of the few. The voice of the 3,200 residents of West Hills certainly outweighs the 2 or 3 who scream the F word at me on Facebook 3 times a week.
That's right.
And if we let the 2 or 3 to be the voice, then we're gonna die in their fever swamp.
At some point you're gonna hit rock bottom enough where you have to be able to do that. And it's what we said in the whole series. This is not a money problem. This is what Gavin said. It's not a money problem. It's never been a money problem. It's an agreement problem.
Yeah, it is.
And if you can get everybody to agree and on the same page and give this a shot, I mean, you have to. We're bleeding money.
You have to remind people the lessons we learned as first graders. Be kind. If your neighbor doesn't have a sandwich and you have one, you give them half of yours. Be gentle, be compassionate. We learn these things in the first grade. But as adults, we do everything in our power to forget them. And then those people that want to drag us into their fever swamp, we're just ripe for the picking for them. And then we get mad at poor people. It's their fault. They haven't worked hard enough. They haven't made enough good decisions. It's too bad for them. And no one's helping me. I work hard every day. Why should they get a free apartment or a free meal? And until we get past that kind of thinking and go into a place of love and service and compassion, we're going to flounder. And if 2 or 3 people can pull the entire community into that fever swamp, then we're going to lose every time.
So people will say, I've heard it a lot. Well, Catholic Charities, they just let anybody. They take care of everybody. There's no conditions. There's no accountability. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I get that all the time. I mean, it's one of the top arguments. The first one is you're attracting more homeless. The food is so good at House of Charity, they're coming from Alabama and Texas and Florida. Not true.
Well, no,
all the data says that 86% of our homeless are born and raised within 50 miles of Spokane.
It's exactly the same in
so
Houston.
that's the first thing I always hear is you're attracting more homeless. And that's the same logical argument as, why more kids have cancer? It's because Sacred Heart built a children's hospital. That's why more kids are sick. It doesn't make sense. It's not rational. That's the first argument. This next one I hear is, well, anything goes. You're letting people shoot up in the lobby of your office, Rob. That's completely untrue. It's a narrative.
There are rules.
It's a narrative created by those people in the fever swamp because it's making people angry and afraid. Works. And so you tell them, well, gosh, everyone's just sitting around doing drugs and drinking and having sex at Catholic Charities buildings. and if you walk in any of our buildings, that's not what you're going to see. We have rules in every program. You cannot bring weapons or drugs into these buildings. If we catch you, we exit you. If you are doing something illegal in your apartment, we evict you. And so the people saying anything goes, they have no rules. It's a complete urban myth. It makes angry people feel good about themselves. It makes people who want you to be upset and hateful. It gives them ammo and people believe it. They're not going to believe me. I can say this on this podcast. No one's going to believe me. No one believes the media. No one's going to believe me. No one believes math or science anymore. But hey, my brother-in-law's Twitter, that guy's got it. I'm going to believe every word he says. We got to get past this as a country, as a community. Let's listen to math and science and data, and let's listen to our hearts. And you know what?
Do the right thing.
And part of that is if someone tells a lie, you better call them out. Because the lie becomes the truth if you tell it enough times. We're seeing that on a national political level every day of the week.
Absolutely.
You say the same lie enough times, it becomes the truth to many people.
Oh yeah, that's
many people.
That's a planned thing.
Yeah, and so now the smaller groups who want to come after the poor, the homeless, or Catholic Charities, they've realized the same strategy in the playbook.
They're using the same
Say
playbook.
the same lie again and again and again and again. Post it 3 times a week on Facebook. Send it out 5 times a week in your email for the commercial real estate group, and eventually it'll be gospel truth to everyone who reads it.
Right.
And you know what? It works.
It
I don't know
worked.
what you do about that.
No, yeah. At some point, it's got to not work.
At some point, you have to stand up and say, here's the truth. If you don't believe me, come look. And then for everyone else, I'm sorry, I'm going to pray for you. Other than that, I'm not really going to engage in my time or resources trying to convince someone who is delusional of a truth that everyone else sees very clearly.
I drive by somebody, I stop at the light, panhandlers, a lot of them downtown. Do I give them money or not?
It's another question I've been asked for 25 years straight. The reality is you're going to be surprised with my answer. They always are, coming from a Catholic Charities person. But we encourage people to not give money to panhandlers. Our vow is let's help them. The reality is that there's the level of mental health and behavioral health and addiction issues is so profound that in many of the cases where you're handing $1 out your window to someone, it's going towards something that's going to harm that person more. And it's going to allow them to harm themselves more. Now, is that true 100% of the time? No. But if you're a single dad and you've got 3 kids and you can't make your rent, are you really going to go sit with a cardboard sign on Division Street off-ramp? You are not going to do that if that's truly your situation.
Right.
Then what we've learned over the years is that panhandling, you can make a lot of money panhandling in this town. But why? Because Spokane is generous, compassionate, kind, all these good things. But unfortunately, that money is going towards things that they use to hurt themselves more with.
Right.
Drugs or alcohol or other things. And so we've been telling people for years, no panhandling. Don't give money to panhandling. In fact, we've had rules at House Charity. If we know you to be a chronic panhandler, we won't give you lunch until you sit and talk with us and explain your plan to stop panhandling. Because panhandling is not an effective strategy. Just like we're learning congregate shelter is not the best way to go, giving money out the window of your car to a panhandler is not the best way to go.
So I asked Jeff Bell, I said, because he knows you and he was just on this podcast not long ago. I said, what question would you ask Rob? And he said, ask him how many times he was ejected as a hockey player.
Too many.
Really?
Too many.
But you didn't lose any teeth.
I got all my own teeth.
Oh, wow, you must have been that good.
Well, I have no comment.
Did you think you were going to keep playing?
When I was that age, if someone had offered me $10 a week to play hockey, I would have said yes. Thank God no one offered. I was not good enough.
You're in a better spot now. You're in a better spot.
But it's interesting because you really have to kind of fight some of those urges. You get so passionate about. We all get passionate.
You're passionate, though,
You're
man.
passionate about your job.
I am. I know.
We're both anywhere you work, you're going to have some level of passion.
True.
And you want to stick up. You stick up for your family. You stick up for your friends. You stick up for where you work. That's a sign that you like where you work. And so the tendency is let's stick up for where I work, but also let's stick up for all these poor and vulnerable who have no voice. They're invisible. They have no chance to defend themselves. Someone better stand up for them. Well, I grew up being that guy that stood up for the other guys on my team.
Right.
And so it's hard for me to just turn that swich off.
Well, I don't think you should. I mean,
Well,
there's a reason.
trust me, I should.
Well, okay.
It never ends well for me.
But you're here. You've said some stuff that has backlash, right? Anything you regret?
Today?
Yeah.
Oh, God. I have to watch the playback. But there'll be several things that Jeff Bell will say, you shouldn't have said that, Rob.
Well, I'm sure. Yeah. But I mean, anything that you're like, I wish I wouldn't have, or or you're okay with everything you've done? You know?
I mean, I make mistakes all the time. We all do. Catholic Charities is a learning organization. We are completely open to someone who wants to sit with us and say, maybe you ought to do this differently and better. I am all ears. I'm all in. We have made changes. When things don't work, it's okay to fail. Just fail quickly. Get it over with. Move on to the next thing. Right. We'll take any criticism. What we won't take is the people with the F-bombs and the death threats. Yeah. And that's not constructive. That's 7th grade behavior. Yeah. There's no gravitas there. We don't entertain it. Yeah. But we are always open to, House of Charity, perfect example. I've been fighting and defending House of Charity for 20-something years, and I'm the first one to say, we think there's a better way to do it, and the way we're doing it maybe isn't the best way. You have to be okay to be able to say that.
That's a big thing. That must have been a big...
Well, I mean, that's if you accept common sense and math and science, then you make the right decisions, right? And House Charity is great. We love it. I will still defend it to my dying days. But now we started this new thing and it works much better. Why wouldn't we do the thing that works much better?
Right.
And it's an added bonus that there are people downtown who want House Charity closed because no matter how many times I tell them, they think we're attracting more homeless people. They think that we are discouraging people from going downtown because the House of Charity is there. I don't agree with any of that, but if sunsetting it makes someone feel better, Catholic Charities, we have a very simple mission: feed the hungry, heal the hurting, make them feel better, welcome the stranger. If closing the House of Charity might make someone feel better, even if they're twisted and delusional and they feel better for all the wrong, awful, hateful reasons, let them feel better.
So you think if you close the House of Charity, do you think there's still going to be people congregating down there?
I think that if you have the House of Charity in a different spot and you have Compassionate Addiction to Treatment, another organization that's doing medical assisted treatment, there's lots of people hanging out there. If you remove those two elements, you will have a hugely less number visible. Of people. Yeah, a visible difference. And I think then it's something that we have to work with law enforcement to move people from that area. The reality is if someone takes a sleeping bag and a tent and is camping in front of the Apple store, smoking meth, smoking fentanyl, they are not going to go 4 minutes before the police are there.
Right.
But that same person could be in front of one of the havens and they can go for a month without anyone ever talking to them.
Okay, yeah. There's the difference.
There is a difference, right? There's a geographical difference here. There's an income inequality matrix going on here. Is. And that's to be expected. Yep. It's normal.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's understandable. But at the same time, we need to do something with all the people that are on the streets. And that means place to sleep that's dignified. It means treatment. It means assistance. And let's get you into housing.
One of the biggest misnomers that I've learned about Catholic Charities over the last close to a decade or whatever I've been helping you guys tell stories has been, you are not just housing. And you are not just homelessness.
Yeah.
You have...
It's all I ever talk about.
It's all you ever talk about, but how many programs do you have now? And they all serve a really big thing.
This conversation is the paradigmatic model of my life. We've been sitting here for an hour.
I know.
And we have not mentioned a single Catholic Charities program except homelessness and housing.
I know.
We have 15 other programs that are much bigger. We serve 60,000 people a year, and only about 1,200 of those have anything to do with homelessness.
Is that right?
The other 58 some odd thousand, seniors, disabled, veterans, kids. We have childcare centers. We have senior services programs, maternity support for pregnant women, newly parenting moms. We have emergency assistance, help people get a bus pass or pay their mortgage so they don't get to become homeless. We have immigration legal services. We have all these things that we do that we never talk about because the only thing people want to talk to me about in the grocery store or on a podcast is homelessness because it's the issue of the day, and that's okay. But the other 400 employees at Catholic Charities pull me over in the hallway and go, "Hey, Rob, what about talking about us once in a while?"
Yeah.
We're doing good work too, and they are. And it's serving the vast majority of our clients have to do with those other programs. They don't have to do with the shelters and housing. Wow. But we never talk about them because the shelters and housing is a lightning rod issue. People have strong opinions. It's become an ideological issue. It's become a political issue. There's a Republican and a Democratic way to serve the homeless. And spoiler alert, they're both wrong. They're both equally wrong. Right. The answer is going to be in the middle.
Yeah.
Common sense.
Yeah.
Compassion, love.
That's where everything happens. What are you most proud of? How long you been doing this?
I 24
when
years.
When did you take over the job of executive director?
About
CEO.
5 years in.
Okay.
Yeah, 2004, 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 20 years almost.
Yeah, and
what are you most proud of?
The staff at Catholic Charities, these 500 men and women who immerse themselves in lives of people who are suffering, and they show up for work every day. They show up for work again the next day. They don't all often feel thanked. They do this hard work, and then they go home and they open their laptop and they see a bunch of people threatening their lives or hating on them on these stupid Nextdoor and Facebook groups that are basically hate speech. And that's really hard for them. So what I'm most proud of is them, that they keep showing up to help people. They prove to us that love always wins. You know, the reality is you can be filled with hate and anger. You can try and drag people into that same fever swamp, but at the end of the day, love's going to beat you every time, 10 times out of 10. Might not do it as fast as I want. I want it right now, but it will eventually win. And I've seen that again and again. And it's the men and women who work at Catholic Charities, the 6,000 people who volunteer for us. They are the ones I'm most proud of.
What do you love the most about your job?
You know, I guess it's interesting.
A tough job, man.
You work somewhere long enough, and if you care about it, you can actually care about it too much. You start caring about something too much, it becomes like one of your kids. Mm-hmm. Like you sit around and you think about your kids all the time. I wonder where they are right now. Wonder what they're doing. I wonder what they're going to do in 6 months or 2 years. Like, how do I get ready for that? You're always worrying, thinking about, you're taking a shower, you're thinking about it.
That's true.
You never turn it off. Work, for me, work has become like that, and it's not healthy. You know, if I'm in the shower thinking about work, I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm hanging out with my family
it's true.
and having dinner and I'm thinking about work, I'm doing it wrong. But you can't work somewhere for 24 years and love it as much as I love it and not have it become like part of your essence.
I know.
And that's when it hurts, when someone takes a swing at you.
Yeah.
And you want to take a swing right back.
Yeah.
And you want to prove them wrong and defend the righteous and the good and the love, because love always wins. And it becomes exhausting, right? You have to be careful. You get burned out real quick. And then when you get burned out, you make mistakes.
Yeah.
You take bait. And then next thing you know, you're following that guy out of Red Robin to the parking lot. And you don't want to do that. It's a really bad headline. I would love it. It would feel good. And I would be successful in my endeavor, but it would be really bad for Catholic
What do
Charities.
you love about your job, though? Or what do you love? What do you love the most about it? The impact. It is a big.
I think,
I don't think
changing people's lives.
Yeah.
Jerica.
Oh, my family, you've helped.
Yeah.
You know, members of my family, you've helped
I
immensely.
focus on the people
and
that
they're
I've
doing
gotten
great.
to meet that their lives have been transformed forever.
Yeah.
You know, the people that 20 years later come up to me in the grocery store and say, "You're not going to remember me, but I used to live at the House of Charity. You got me an apartment. You helped me get a job. And now I'm married with kids and I'm doing great.
Wow.
And I have no memory of this person." That happens all the time to me and to all the staff.
It fills the tank
You
back
walk
up.
around with a Catholic Charity shirt, people pull you over all the time and go, "You helped my mom, you helped my dad, you helped my grandmother, you helped my kids, you helped me." That's what I love is, you know, at the end of the day, we're all going to get to the pearly gates and make our case for why we ought to get in. And Catholic Charities might help me a little bit, you know, making that case. And, you know, but changing people's lives for the better, you know, and it's so easy to focus on all the sad stories, the failing stories, people that passed away from their addiction, that never got clean, that never got help. But they are 10x outnumbered by the success stories. 10x.
What do you say to the people who say, "Oh, you're just building slums downtown"?
You know, I think
there's like 7 havens down there, or whatever.
Well, there's 4 right around the House of Charity.
Yeah.
And if you drive by them, they might scare you. If you walk in them, you'll go, "Oh my God, this is beautiful."
I know.
And so,
There's amazing stuff
the
going on
optics, the public optics are you're building slums. Anyone who says that to me, I say, "Come with me. Give me 20 minutes of your time. And if I haven't changed your mind, I'll be shocked."
And how many people live in there that really are now off the street?
Yeah, 50.
50 in each of those. So there's
50
200
in every building
right there that were
with mental health and substance abuse and staff on site.
And that are moving through, by the way, not just there the whole time. They're moving through to
we're moving them to other. We have 3,000 units of housing. 5,176 men, women, and children going to put their heads on Catholic Charities pillows tonight.
5,000.
5,000. Over 5,000. Wow. That's a big number.
And you're not counting the ones that graduate out of this.
No. and they move on to buying a first home or moving
That's
into
exactly
an apartment.
right.
Jerica lives in a home now.
I know.
In the Logan neighborhood.
Exactly. She doesn't even, and she was somebody that, was literally on the street.
And was in Rising Strong a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
She's got her own home now.
I know it. So that's the part nobody's really
The
adding to this
continuum
equation.
is, treatment, shelter, housing, and then start your life.
Right. Now you can start your life.
And by the way,
now that you're stable
please move
enough.
out of that housing so I can free up that bed for the next homeless family.
That's right.
So, Jerica, thank you for moving into a house. You just freed up your unit for another family.
That's a huge, her and Jeff making that happen is such a gift to the next person who needs to come through.
It's a continuum of love. And you got to love that. You got to wonder how anyone could ever hate that or be angry at that, but they are. For those people, you try and talk to them, try and rationalize with them, have a conversation, pray for them. And if they still aren't going to get there and they just want to throw the F-bomb at you, then you say, hey, sorry.
One of my favorite things that I've learned the last at least 5 or 6 years is what other people think of me is none of my business. do you believe that?
Yeah. I think
Does it help you?
I think you have to. I mean, it's it's a big organization. We serve a lot of people. We're in a lot of locations. There's always going to be someone who's not super happy with something that we're doing. But that's also the sign that you're making a difference.
You're on the edges.
You're
man.
in the mix. You're in the fray. You're trying to make things better. If people want to tear you down for that, let them try. They're not going to win.
What would this region be like without you guys?
What would it look like if if you had 5,000 more people homeless? That's how many people are going to sleep on Catholic Charities pillows tonight. Does anyone think that's a good idea?
No.
What would it look like what did it look like at Camp Hope? 600 people sleeping outside. Wouldn't you rather have them in shelter beds?
More people living there than the city of Oakdale.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It was. Well,
and in conditions that do not promote human dignity.
Not at all. No, not at all. It's not an option. Anything else you're good at that we don't know about? Karaoke.
I wish I was better at golf. I wish I was a better poker player.
We need to go find out. All right. Because I did not realize you played golf.
Oh, yeah.
My God.
I've probably played every course in a 100-mile radius.
Okay. Me too. I've been playing since I was 10.
Since I was 7.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We got to go. Man, that'll be fun. Wow. If someone needs help, what do they do? If someone is, I drive by, speaking of golf, I grew up not far from Downriver Golf Course. First time I played it was 10. Played it my whole life. I drive that now, and that river road is lined with vans and cars and people living in their car.
Absolutely.
It's unbelievable to me. What do you say to them?
If they're ready to get help, if they're ready to get services, if they're ready to get housing, we're absolutely here to help them. That's what we do. We won't turn anyone away. We serve all people. We serve everybody. Doesn't matter if you're Catholic or not. Doesn't matter anything about you. We serve you. But they have to come and want to get help.
That's a big misnomer. There are literally,
Yeah.
I have told people that. They're like, well, I'm not Catholic.
90% of our clients are non-Catholic. 90% of our staff are non-Catholic. We don't serve people because they're Catholic. We serve people because we're Catholic. We think it's our job to do it. It's our sacred obligation. We don't care what your nationality, your gender. We don't care anything about your sexual orientation. We don't care where you've been, who you are. We love everybody. That's the rule. Total inclusion. And if you come to us and ask for help, we're going to say yes every single time. The biggest problem we have is people don't want to get the help. Eventually they change their mind, and we're going to be here when they do. In the meantime, we've got our hands full just with the people who do want help.
So if I'm in that van and I'm at Downriver, what do I do?
You call the Catholic Charities main number. You will instantly be connected with our homeless families coordinator, and they will give you a laundry list of options to get out of that van down by the river and to get into a safe, stable place, whether it's a shelter, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a treatment center. We will get you in. And we will find a way to help you if you reach out to us. I mean, we have outreach teams that go out and talk to people, but we're busy running 102 locations. We don't have extra staff to send out. But for people who are out there, all you got to do is call us, go to the website. The number's right there. You can send an email. You'll get a response every single time, and we'll tell you what your options are.
How can people help?
I think the biggest thing people can do that's most impactful for us, it's not money. My fundraising director is listening to this going, Rob, say it's money.
Money wouldn't hurt.
Money doesn't hurt, and please
You'll use it well.
But the most impactful thing is people's hearts and minds. The way you talk about the poor and the vulnerable, the way you talk about homelessness, the way you vote your conscience, the way you teach your kids about this, the way you talk about it at a backyard barbecue, and if someone is spewing hate, do you correct them or not? The way that you live your life, of having some compassion, having some love, having some understanding, educate yourself on the real issues. Don't listen to nextdoor.com. Don't listen to the crazy Facebook or your brother-in-law's Twitter feed. It's all garbage. Listen to your heart. Do your own research. If you think that we're building slums, call me and say, I want you to prove me wrong. I will take you on a tour personally. And I will show you what the inside of these buildings look like. And you'll say, oh my God, that's not what I thought I was going to see. It is
not. I had the same experience. I was really nervous going into, I think it was
because
Donna
people
Hansen.
Are conditioned to be afraid of the poor.
Is it's littered with people.
And it's scary.
And you walk in and it's not like that. And I was like, wow, this is not what I thought. It just isn't. And, that's, yeah. Kind of last question. What do you wish people know they don't know? Maybe you've said it all.
I think the biggest thing that I wish people knew is, that we are doing this work because we feel like every human being is made in the image and likeness of God. And it doesn't matter to us whether God is Jesus or Yahweh or Buddha or Allah, doesn't matter. If you believe that human beings have intrinsic value and deserve basic dignity and respect, that's what we base all of our work on. Feed the hungry, heal the hurting, welcome the stranger. That's our mission statement. Everyone can remember that. It's pretty simple stuff. It's basic stuff, but you'd be amazed how many people try their damnedest to forget to do those basic, simple things. So I wish more people knew the truth about what it's like to be poor, what it's like to be an organization that serves the poor. It's not nearly as scary or as angry or as hate-filled as some people want you to believe. They want to sucker you into that fever swamp. And I wish more people would kind of get to that place where they can see what the truth is. And don't believe your neighbor or the crazy Facebook or Nextdoor post. Don't believe me either. Go find out for yourself, because I have 100% confidence that you could secret shop us. You could walk into our building on any day of the week, any time of the day, and you're going to say, "Well, this is beautiful. This is what love looks like." And all the things you've heard or read about on social media, or when you drive by and you see something that looks scary, it's going to immediately leave. It's going to leave your heart. It's going to leave your head.
Well, I think most people, and I think you had some data that maybe backs this up, that I heard some research was just done about you guys, but most people like Catholic Charities.
Yeah.
Right? That probably surprised you and your team, who every day get to hear kind of the negative stuff.
We
right?
are guilty of being sucked into the fever swamp.
I think so.
The last couple years, we've gotten attacks by the same small group of people enough that it gets in your head.
Yeah.
So we hired a professional national polling company to make phone calls all over Eastern Washington.
Not long ago.
And ask people, what are your perceptions of the poor, of Catholic Charities, House of Charity, all of it. And I was thinking, okay, here we go. We're going to find out
it's going to be bad.
The 1 out of 10 in grocery store is actually 6 out of 10. And the whole community is angry at us. And what we found is about 85% of people had a very positive view of Catholic Charities and a very positive view of the idea that you ought to feed someone who's hungry and house someone who's homeless.
What did that teach you about sort of how you guys all look at yourselves?
Well, I think it taught us.
If you hear it negatively, you have to start thinking that.
Yeah, it gets in your head. It gets in your kitchen, right?
Like you're doing way better than you realize.
Yeah, well, you realize that, okay, we are on the right track.
Yeah.
And there's always going to be some voices that are unhappy. And we'll try and solve those voices if they want to have a mature adult conversation. Very few of them do. But for the most part, most people already think you're doing a good job. I mean, we have 40,000 people on our mailing list who are supporters.
Yeah.
We have 6,000 volunteers. We're in 102 locations. We serve 60,000 different people every year. That's a lot of people that have a good
nobody's
vibe
getting
about Catholic
100%. 85 is really good.
We'll take 85. I'd like it to be in the 90s, but we'll take 85 for today. But it wasn't 20%.
No,
It wasn't,
no.
you know, I go to
think you
bed at
guys-
night worried about that.
You probably had to take a look at that.
Because what do I get in my email box and my phone tree every day is all the people that are mad. I don't get a lot of people who call me and say, "Hey, Rob, I just want to tell you what a great job you're doing." I don't get those calls. But it turns out 85% of the people think that way. They just don't tell us.
Well,
it's
that's
the vocal minority
Right.
of fear and anger that gets to my inbox every day.
Isn't that crazy?
And you get that day
That's
after
gotta
day
change.
after day.
That's just gotta
It gets in your
change.
kitchen,
It's gotta
right?
change in this
and so
world,
it's empowering to know that the community for the most part realizes that we're doing good work.
That's awesome. That's great. Anything else you do for fun ever? Do you ever have fun?
We golf.
You can't go to dinner.
We scuba dive.
Really?
My wife and I have been diving for 20 something years.
No way.
Yep.
Favorite
the
place
kids
to,
now are both
favorite
certified.
place to scuba? Where?
I think the best dive I've ever been on probably was in the Cayman Islands.
Wow.
Yeah. And we love it. We love the warm weather. We try and do one dive trip every other year or so as a family.
That's cool.
The kids are both certified. So now, the family Christmas card is us underwater at 70 feet somewhere.
No way.
Yeah, every
That's
year.
super cool. Wow. I just wouldn't have thought you would have. That's what you do
Yeah,
for fun.
we love it. We love it.
Wow. And you play golf. All right. Well, we have to go do that. Well, hey, thanks for the difference you make. I know you hear that though. You do hear that.
I do. It is 9 out of 10 in the
mean,
grocery
really,
store.
it's
but
true.
I'm a victim of my own preaching. I only really hear the 1 out of 10 that's pissed off.
Well,
and I
okay.
need to get past that.
You do. That's where you can get better. Because I do. You got to hear the 85. Like, I really, I don't know. I mean, what those guys think, it doesn't matter.
It does
matter.
It does matter to me if they have a rational, mature, professional dialogue and argument. I want to know if we're doing something wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for the people that want to threaten to kill me,
yeah,
I don't have time for that.
no, you don't have time for
Or
that.
I'll give you an address. Meet me here at this time. No cameras.
Just the hockey player.
Then we'll talk.
All right, fast forward. You got a magic wand in your hand. 5 years from now, what do you hope?
5 years from now, I don't think it's unrealistic to say that you could have a couple more Catalyst-like buildings being run by multiple different agencies and nonprofits. And I think you can do a lot to empty out street homelessness in Spokane.
This doesn't need to be just a Catholic Charities thing.
No, it can't be. There are lots of other organizations that do this work now. They do it really well. They do it even better than us. And so we're handing those torches off. If there's someone that can do low barrier shelter better than us, let them do it. We did the House of Charity because no one else was ever willing to do it ever.
Right.
In the last 50 years.
Right. And it
There are now
needed to happen.
5 or 6 nonprofits that do a great job with that exact population. We're going to let them do that. We're going to go focus on the group that no one is focusing on right now: seniors, hospice, respite, those kinds of folks.
Go blaze
And
those trails.
In the background, we're going to keep building housing. We're building 4 projects this year. We're going to build a couple more next year. We build a couple every year. We build them all over Eastern Washington. When we open our project in Clarkston and Colville next year sometime, family homelessness in those 2 cities, on the day we open, will go to functional zero.
Wow.
We will eliminate family homelessness in those 2 communities by building one project.
Wow.
So you can't tell me we can't do the same thing in Spokane. We can, but we're going to have to build more, which means more neighborhoods are going to do this. And we're going to have to get through that. We're going to have to work through that. It's okay to have those people somewhere where you might actually have to look at them once in a while.
Well, Catalyst was worth it.
Yeah. Catalyst proves the concept.
It does prove it.
The neighborhood that said you're going to kill us all, you're going to ruin it, is now saying best it's ever been in 10 years. Can you do it with some of these others?
Right.
Can you do the same thing?
Right. I think so. That's what you can see happening.
Well, that's
can.
how I think the future is there. The future is not in giant dorm rooms with 150 guys snoring on top of each other. But the future can't be Camp Hope either. We cannot have people sleeping outside. We're better than that as a country. We're better than that as a community. And we can fix this if we have the political will, the community-wide will to say, let's do the right thing, even if it might be a little scary, even if it might be near me, near my work, near my house. That we have to still find a way to open our hearts to that.
Well, you're doing amazing work, and I'm grateful that you said yes to this and that you sat
Happy to
down
do it.
unfiltered.
Yeah, I'm sure I said some stuff that I'm going to ask you to edit. at some point.
I'll probably say no.
I know you will. But
No,
I
I
knew that
won't.
coming in.
Rarely does that ever happen. I don't think it's ever. I mean, maybe once or twice, and I probably will. I will if you really want something that comes out of it.
I think
you get
gotta,
to watch it first.
You got to
but
speak
I don't.
truth. You
You
got to
do.
be,
You didn't
be
say
who you
anything.
are. Speak your
You
truth.
didn't say anything that you wouldn't say.
Someone's got to stand up for people who can't stand up for themselves. That's Catholic Charities' job. I run Catholic Charities, so I see that as my job.
Well, thanks for doing your job well.
All right.
Great to see you. Keep doing this.
Chair is the most uncomfortable piece of furniture I've ever sat in.
MIP Podcast was filmed at the studio of Corner Booth Media. Please sure to like, subscribe, and follow us on social media. You can also listen to us on Spotify, Apple Music, and anywhere podcasts can be found.
We'd love it if you'd rate, review, and subscribe to help our podcast grow. Be good to yourself. Stay interesting.